Carrie. Welcome to Two Hags Chinwag, and this is episode 1.5, I think it is. And so we're excited. It feels like it's been a while. And so we thought we would start with doing a little collective card reading, I'll do an oracle card reading today, and then next time Susie will do like a tarot card reading. Does that sound?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sound cool?
I love that.
So, first I just want to show you what I'm using, and I'm hooked to these decks, and it's called Season of the Witch, and this is the Imbolc season. So what I decided was that I would use these cards 3 weeks prior and 3 weeks after the point of the wheel that they're for. So I still have another week of being able to use these, and I don't have the Austero one yet. So I'm going to shuffle, and this is going to be a reading for all of our listeners and for us too. So it should be interesting. But these cards are always just so, I don't know, they're gentle. I guess maybe that's why I like them so much. But they're gentle, but they don't hold back. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess if it's a message that you need to hear, you hear it in a gentle way.
Right.
So I don't know how you want to do this. So Susie's pulling a card. Ooh, the Serpent. So I'm just showing the Serpent card. Now I know Susie's not a big fan of snakes.
Susie is not.
Whereas I do actually like snakes. So at the bottom it says, slither through and out as you shed in preparation for a new beginning. So I don't really know these decks that well, so I know it's a pet peeve of a lot of people that you have to read through the book.
I don't think that at all. I don't think people should feel pressured to know what the card is, and the book is there for a reason.
Yeah, and you know what, Susie teaches tarot, so she's an authority on that opinion.
I say it's okay.
So this just says creativity doesn't have an expiration date, and it's never too late to welcome a new addition into your life. Just when you think everything is over and you've lost what you've worked so hard for, or maybe you've missed the boat, you, like the serpent, can shed your skin and reinvent yourself entirely. I am like an expert on reinventing myself. The Serpent card will make its way to you when a second chance is upon you. Any missed opportunity will soon be replaced with another. Forgiveness is close at hand, or perhaps you're about to have another shot at love. So if it's about your career, this means a career change and is a good omen for seeking new employment. Consider a physical makeover if that feels good to you. What might the person you're becoming dress like, or how might they behave? Can you embrace some of these qualities? This card, however, does come with a note of caution. Growing pains can sometimes make transitions difficult. Remain patient and know that any challenges you face are temporary blocks to overcome. And that's the card.
Nice.
So let us know if it resonates with you right now.
I think that's appropriate for the 9 universal year that we're in, which is about shedding and making way for new things. And, you really shouldn't feel like you have to be tied to any one thing. You can change your mind at any time.
Yeah.
And become a totally new person. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice message. Thanks, Trish.
Yeah. All right. So Susie's going to do her main topic. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Great,
yeah.
Thanks. So I wanted to talk about ways that spirituality can help you with your mental health. And I can only speak from my experience. I'm not a trained psychologist, or I haven't taken any courses or anything. So what I speak from is just, my own opinion, and hopefully Trish has some thoughts on it too. So there's a couple areas that I suffer from, one being anxiety, and the other is just my crazy monkey mind that goes round and round in circles. But recently I've been blessed to be a part of a friend of mine who is taking a life coach course through the Chopra Foundation. And she is a very smart lady, and I respect her a lot, so I was really excited to be one of her test subjects. So we go through different subjects each week. So one will be a structured one where we follow the program, and then the next one will be kind of a follow-up where we just sort of discuss, what we've absorbed from that lesson. So I'm almost through, and this one we just had is shadow work. So I was really excited because in the witchy world, of course, we all know about shadow work, and we embrace the shadow, and we know that there's dark and light, and there's, yin and yang, and two sides to everything, masculine, feminine, however you want to word it. So I went into the session with an open mind and open heart, like I always do. And she said, it might be a little bit uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. I wasn't prepared. So what she did was she asked me, what makes me frustrated. So people, situations, what really bothers you. And, there's a lot. So, but I'm kind of uncomfortable with naming names. Like, I don't like to say, oh, this person drives me crazy, but she wanted me to be honest. So I brought up a couple situations, and then she flips it. And she says, is there something in that you see in yourself? So, a lot of what came up was that I can be kind of dismissive and a little bit superior. Shocking.
Interesting.
I know, right? Because I'm like, I hate it when people are dismissive of me. And she's like, is there a part of yourself that does that? And I'm like, oh. So it really makes you look at yourself, so that when you get frustrated or angry with someone, is it because they're triggering your own feelings inside of you? So one of the things I said was, it drives me crazy when people are careless. Like, God love hubby, but every day it's, hon, have you seen my keys? Hon, have you seen my wallet? Hon, I can't find this, I can't find that. And it really drives me crazy. It's like, why are you constantly losing things? So in looking into that, when she asked me to examine it, I realized that I'm super triggered because growing up, if you remember, Mom was always like hyper vigilant about everything. So you'd be no sooner in the car down the road and she'd be like, oh, did I leave the stove on? Or, oh, like everything was like just this huge drama.
Right.
So if you lost something, Mom would just lose her mind, or she lost something, she'd lose her mind. So it just triggers those feelings in me. So it really made me stop and think. But yeah, the whole part about me being a little bit superior acting, like kind of judgmental. Right?
Yeah,
so I'm always on about, being a safe space for people and wanting to be non-judgmental. So I take it out on the people closest to me. Like I take a lot of it out on Jamie, my partner. And I really try not to, because he's such a gentle person. And he takes a lot of it. But, it really made me stop and think, you know what? I'm so nice to other people. Like, I try to be nice at work, and I try to be nice to my customers. And, you're nice to strangers, but your own people. So the people you feel are the strongest people maybe are the ones you take it out on. So I would just challenge people to, maybe take a look at what we do and how we behave towards our loved ones. So that was one thing, the shadow work. I would encourage you, if like me, you've tried talk therapy and it hasn't been successful, I would get really frustrated with talk therapy. No offense to your mom, who's Trisha's mom is a psychiatrist. I would just end up feeling really crappy and trying to fit myself into where they wanted me to be. And of course we talk about, in our podcasts, you not using labels and how, most witches don't feel like they fit into any particular category anyway. So that never worked for me. So I, was lucky to be able to find a couple of spiritual people who were counselors. And I encourage you, to find someone to talk to, someone who is non-judgmental, who can give you the safe space to talk, even if it's just a friend over a cup of tea. Sometimes just voicing those words that have been running around in your head, it's always worse in your head, isn't it? And then when you say it out loud, like even if it's a bad dream or, just something, right? Just get it out, and it loses its power once it's out of your mouth. It's almost like releasing it, which is, I think, where a lot of my IBS came from, was stuffing things down inside. And, it was like pockets of anxiety and pockets of worry and pockets of, just like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I this? And so I had to learn to stop comparing myself to others and to embrace my own path. This is who I am. And the older I get, the more I'm comfortable with myself, and I'm happier with myself. So, look for someone that you can trust. Really find someone that you feel comfortable with. So just because your friend is seeing this psychiatrist or somebody recommended this psychologist doesn't mean that you're going to fit in with that person. So don't feel bad. I was paying this lady $200 an hour to leave her session feeling like crap.
Yeah. Yes.
I would rather, pay someone else that money, although usually spiritual people don't charge you $200 an hour for their sessions, but it's all about how much money you put into getting yourself to that accreditation, right? So and also there's another lady. So when my girlfriend finishes her course, I will recommend her. I just, she doesn't have the certificate yet. But another lady that helped me, I just had one session with her, and then I found my friend that was doing the free course. But so Brenda Mailer from Seabright Studios, she's a yoga teacher. She also does counseling as well. So I just wanted to put a plug in for her, because she's another lady that she's been through a lot in her life, so she can speak to you from experience. And she's so gentle and such a loving person. And that's what I like, right? My other spiritual counselor I had before that, she was a no-nonsense lady, which I needed at the time. I needed somebody to say, listen to yourself. That's not how she worded it, but sometimes we need that. We need that little bit of a kick in the pants, right?
So, good question for you. So what would you say would be the difference between somebody who, like you say, like a spiritual sort of counselor versus a psychologist or psychiatrist? What was the most notable difference for you, in case somebody doesn't really know why seek one or the other kind of thing, or do you think that it could work in conjunction with each other? If somebody was seeing a psychologist, do you think that also seeing a spiritual counselor would work, or is that overkill? Is it too much?
I wouldn't say it's too much, because it's two different things, right? So when I was seeing a psychologist, I kind of held back on my witchiness, right?
Right.
So, in all fairness to them, I wasn't being my authentic self with them. I just, was waiting for them to come up with some really great wisdom for me to go, oh, okay. And it wasn't a good blend for me. So the spiritual person, I'm more able to be myself with and to talk. It's just easier for me to talk to someone from the community. That's
a really good point. I think that's really something to keep in your mind, because like Susie said, it allowed her to be herself, because sometimes, especially as spiritual people, you get so dismissed often because you believe in things, and so especially people of scientific minds like psychiatrists or psychologists, not always, but you've been sort of trained that way, that you're like, oh, they probably don't believe in this stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it. So I think that's a really, really good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there is a place for both, right?
Yeah.
Like, I like someone who comes at something from a scientific point of view, but also has an open mind, right? Like the psychologist that I was seeing, she was fine with all of that. But I don't know, sometimes she would look at me, and maybe it was just me, right, being self-conscious, but I felt like sometimes she looked at me like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, okay.
Like as in you were flaky or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure that was probably me, but it doesn't matter because that's how she made me feel.
Exactly.
So it was not working, and
Right.
bless her heart. But I made her laugh a lot because, that's what I do to, take the edge off things.
Right.
Like, I'll just make a joke out of something, and, it was nice of her to laugh at me, but she probably should have told me to be serious. I don't know. God love her. I feel bad. So then the other part of mental health for me is anxiety. So I feel like I've come, a long way. There was a time when, the thought of driving down here in the wintertime would have just sent me into, but I had no anxiety coming.
Oh,
so, it's a lot of work to get to that point where I feel more comfortable with situations, not allowing the fear to come in. So fear is helpful for us in situations, obviously, it keeps us safe, but you have to ask yourself, is that fear coming from a place of intuition and a place of logic, or is it coming from a place of scarcity and, trauma, right? Like, how I learned to be fearful of things because Mom was so fearful of things. There was learned behavior, and there was, some whatever you went through in your life along the way. So, it's like with intuition, you have to ask yourself, is this my inner guidance, or is this, coming from fear, or coming from, something someone planted in my head? So when I know I have to, get in the car and go somewhere, then I'm going to do things to protect myself. I'm going to do things spiritually and mentally to prepare myself for that. And, so when you are in a situation that you feel you can't control, you want to get that control back. So you want to do some deep breathing. You want to do a little meditation. You want to listen to some music. You want to, just do something to take you out of that headspace. My goodness, like, I was so hard on myself, right? Like, I was just like, me, and the disaster scenarios, and this could happen, that could happen, and, Mom thinks I'm in a ditch somewhere, like the whole thing, right? Oh, Susie, be careful. So I had to do a lot of work to break out of that, and I had to find things that worked for me. So, I do talk to my mom on the other side now because she was so protective of me in the physical world that I feel that has carried over, but without all that drama that came with my mom's worrying and oh my god, bless her heart. But yeah, she put a lot of fears into me. So, I ask for help from the other side, and I do things to calm myself, and, I talk to myself a lot, and in the car, music or singing, and you had talked about that day that you were in the car and you decided to turn, your fears around and started blessing people, and, just taking yourself out of that low vibration activity that serves you no good, right? Like, what good does my anxiety and my worry ever do for me, right? So, give yourself a little mental slap.
Yeah. The as you were talking, a bunch of things came up because, like Susie said, my mom is a psychologist, and she's got training up the yin yang. She's going to be 80 this September. She's still working, but so I grew up being psychoanalyzed. Constantly. And let me tell you that is not healthy. It's really not healthy for the receiving end of that. Because she was going to university when I was young, so I actually didn't live with my mother since I was 12 years old. But when I would see her in the summers or whatever, I was her guinea pig because she was going back to university and to become a psychologist. And Mom gets really kind of mad at me. When my daughter passed away, I didn't see a psychologist. And Mom was like kind of mad at me. And I was like, Mom, I've seen psychologists in the past, and no offense, but they were useless to me. Absolutely useless. But I did feel pressured. Actually, through my work, I had like EAP, which is Employee Assistance Program, and they sort of recommended that because of my grieving and all that stuff, they're like, here we offer you a free session or whatever. And I was like, maybe I will. And when I went to the psychologist, again, it was, we were talking about grieving and what I was actually doing at the time. And she basically looked at me and said, I have really nothing to add because what you're doing is what I would have recommended. Yeah, and she said, and I felt that. I felt like I was already doing what I needed to do, which was basically feeling the grief, right? And allowing all those emotions to happen. I didn't suppress them, not for a good 5 years. Then I started suppressing them. But I remember her saying to me two things that really struck to me. She's like, I don't know if you believe in this, but she says, I believe that their spirits continue on. And she said that your daughter is with you all the time. Or she's with you when you need her to be there for you. And all you have to do is just talk to her because she's still there. And for a psychologist, I felt that was very
enlightened?
It was enlightened and reassuring, right? And the other thing she said is, she said, on a psychology point of view, she said, just know that the human brain isn't wired to grieve forever. And it was, so I had that balance with her. She respected my spiritual, well, I didn't even talk to her about my spiritual views because I wasn't, like Susie said, I wasn't sure if I felt safe to do so. But she's the one that brought it up. And then she balanced it with actual science and saying that, the human brain isn't wired to grieve forever. The pathways heal. She said the wound will always be there, but you will learn to live with it. And, she was right. And anybody who's been through grief knows that that's pretty much the case. You do eventually heal the scar that will always be there. But when I saw psychologists before, which is why I was so resistant to go, I would tell my story, and I felt like they were more entertained by my background and by the things that happened in my life. They weren't necessarily interested in healing me. They were more interested in my story.
So they could put another chapter in the book they're writing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to add that to my book.
Yeah. So I thought that was really important because I remember one psychologist said that maybe you should see a counselor, not so much as a psychologist, but a counselor. And they recommended this, but it was a guy and I didn't want to. But they recommended this guy, and she said, he'll go for walks with you. It's like having a friend, but a trained friend.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And it did actually, I was like, maybe, but then I just never did. So, yeah, really seek out what kind of counselor, especially, I mean, if you're listening to our podcast, I'm assuming you have a very deep spiritual side to yourself. So, feeling safe talking about that side of you is really important, because that's the side of you that really gets you through life a lot of times, and gives you coping skills. So if they are open to that, then they can work with that. They can work with that spiritual side of you. When Susie was talking too about suppressing, and that's why she has IBS, it reminded me of a book I had, and this was back in the 90s. But I often think of this book. And it's written by Louise Hays. Do you remember Louise Hays?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't remember the title of it. I'll try to look it up.
Heal Your Life, or...
Maybe.
She's had a couple.
Yeah.
But she talks about all the illnesses and the spiritual connection.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what? That book is actually... I remember going through it and thinking... she's on point on a lot of these things. So even though it was written back in the 90s, I feel it's still valid. So I would recommend, I'll try to find it.
I see it at Value Village. I'm sure I have one or two on my bookshelf, but I often see her books at Value Village because they've been around for so long that they cycle through, right?
Yeah. See, I had one and it's gone now. So it probably went through Value Village.
I have it. No, I'm just kidding.
When Susie said about having all these voices and how hard, we are on ourselves, I mean, I think everybody can relate to that. Although, when I was on Instagram, there was a thing going around saying, when you're just going about your day, do you hear your own voice inside your head? And I was shocked at how many people don't hear their voice inside their heads. It's blank.
What?
Yeah, it's actually more common to not hear a voice than to hear a voice. So even when people read a book, they don't hear the voice.
I don't know what to do with that information.
Right? I was like, what? How do you function? What is that like? Like to not...
What's that like?
So apparently people, when they read a book, they see images. They don't hear the word. So, Seasons of the Witch, when I read it, I hear that in my head, Seasons of the Witch. And apparently it's more common to not hear anything, but to see the images. It's less common to hear the words, and it's even lesser common to hear the words and see images, which is what I do when I read a book. Like, do you see images too?
Yeah.
And hear the voice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought that's how it went.
Me too. And so many people would say, what? You hear voices? Like, in the comments, and people would be like, you don't hear voices? Like, what is that like? And I thought, I wouldn't change it for the world, because I kind of like the way my brain works, but sometimes I wouldn't mind not hearing a voice, because it is hard.
But isn't that what they call mindfulness?
Not hearing a voice?
Yeah.
Yes. But
so when I'm swimming, that's the only time I can let myself go, because I'm in the water and I'm buoyant, and all of a sudden I'll go, wow, I just wasn't thinking about something. Like, I'll have like these little moments where I'm not thinking about anything. Mm-hmm. I'm just swimming and I'm feeling the water. And I actually think I'm a little otter when I'm in the water. But then I think, is that how people feel? Like, do people have like big moments like that where they don't have to be having these little hamsters running on the wheel?
It must be. I don't know.
Holy crap.
Right? I know. It just blew my mind, because I didn't believe the post, because it said so many percentage of people, hear words, and so many percentage. And I was like, that's not true. This is, social media bullshit. But when I read the comments, I was like, oh my God, it is true.
It's like people who don't dream, right? Like my Jamie, he probably does dream, but he doesn't. Like every once in a while, he'll say, I remember my dream. But I don't know how you can sleep and not dream.
I know. Well, I'm constantly dreaming.
Yeah.
My brain is constantly going. So yeah, to have those moments or even like a full day of just not having words going through your head, or
I don't get it.
I know.
Yeah, that's like brain dead, isn't it? Like like if you hooked someone up to one of those machines with the brain, right? Like mine's like.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
I know. I don't know. I don't even know what kind of existence that is. That's amazing to me, and it takes all kinds to make the world turn, right? And I think that's pretty cool in a way. But along those lines, when you're doing spiritual work, it's just something I heard recently, actually, on a reel. This guy, I think he might be a druid, I can't remember. But anyway, he was talking about when you do your magical work, don't just do it in your head, because, well, apparently not everybody's like this, but like Susie and I, we have so many thoughts in our head, so many words, so much noise in our heads. So if you're, say, doing your spell, or if you're charging your crystals or whatever it is, speak it out loud, because there's so much going on out inside the head. The spirit world doesn't quite know what to pick up on. Which words are we working with? So he was like, speak it out loud. So say, I am charging my crystals, or I'm talking to my spirit guide. So do it out loud. Just say it out loud, because of all that noise in your head. Anyway.
I love that. No, that makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
And I find that when I'm at my most, I don't want to say desperate, but there's been times that I've cried out loud to my mom or whatever, like, you have to help me. And it is very powerful. And words are very powerful. But you know what? What makes me crazy, though, is a lot of spiritual people say, watch your words, because what you say, that's what you're going to manifest. And I understand it. However, I have a little problem with that, because I'm always just saying stuff off the cuff. Like, Susie, you're such an idiot. I'm not saying I'm an idiot. It's just in that situation. I go, I mean, so just because I say something doesn't mean I actually am manifesting it or believing it or bringing it about, because it's all about intention.
Yes, that reminds me, again, from the 90s, I'm pretty sure it was Eckhart Tolle, because I remember he was saying that if you have a thought like, oh, I'm an idiot, it's not going to manifest unless you hang on to it for more than, I think it was, and now this is going to sound random, and I might be making this up, for 16 seconds. So if you hold it beyond, if you are holding that thought beyond 16 seconds, then you start manifesting it. But if you're just saying it off the cuff and then you're moving on with life, right? It's not going to.
That makes sense to me.
Do anything.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that as an argument next time someone says, "Watch what you're saying. You're gonna manifest that." Cheese and rice, give me a break. And the other thing I think about is, like actors, right? So I used to do a lot of acting when I was in school. I loved that. Oh my God.
She was so good too.
Thank you. Imagine an introvert being really good at acting. And I have no problem with public speaking. Zero problem with public speaking. But here we go. Anyway, so I think, if I'm acting a scene and I'm evil, or I'm, a lot of emotion or whatever, am I manifesting that?
Yeah. No,
because there's not the intention of it.
Exactly.
I'm simply putting a mask on and, acting like, cosplay or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
I'm not actually an evil person.
Yeah.
Or am I? But anyway, so, I just think that a lot of people just mimic and they just spout out these things without really delving into it, right? Like really, it's easy just to mimic and to repeat and to, grab onto a meme and pass that around. I like to get into the meat and potatoes of things, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's delve into it. And maybe I'm wrong. And I will admit when I'm wrong about things, but I at least want to discuss it.
Yeah.
Right? With a reasonable person.
And God, this time, the way the world is right now, God, it's so important to find some way to find peace. I have to say, like, I've been struggling the last couple weeks, like anxiety, and I've been really good about curating my social media. I've always been very good at that. When Alicia was a baby, I became like Susie's mom. I guess it's the Aries in us. But I became so scared of the world for my daughter that I became obsessed with the news and what was happening. And I could see myself spiraling into this anxious basket case, basically. And I did not want that for her. Turns out she suffered big time from anxiety. But anyway, so when she was about 4 or 5 years old, that's it. I'm done with the news. So I stopped watching the news, and people would think I was ignorant because I knew of nothing going on in the world. I knew the world was screwed up, and I knew things that were happening. I just didn't need to know that it was happening again to somebody else or to this animal or to the planet. I don't need that constant reinforcement. I know it. I know that this is happening. So my head's not in the sand, but I choose not to be constantly fed that. And I was doing a really good job when social media came out. I was really stringent with who I was following. And which groups I was following, because if they started going into that fear space, I was like, no, I can't do it. I unfollow or I mute them or whatever. And Instagram was like a breath of fresh air because I was seeing beautiful pictures and beautiful videos, but that's changed again. Like, that's changed now. That's become toxic too. But even with my curating what I see on my social media, I can't escape it now. It's just all U.S. politics and the world's going to hell and all this stuff. And even good accounts that I follow are posting this stuff. And I'm like, don't force me to get off of social media, because I actually like social media. I love Instagram and I love YouTube. But don't force me to have to not be on this anymore. I hate that. So I was starting to really feel anxious the last couple of weeks, and I was like, okay, you need to recalibrate, and you need to find ways to use your witchcraft, your spiritual practice to center yourself and block that out and create beauty around you. And take care of your own little corner of the world. That's the most important thing. Take care of yourself, and then that spreads out. And,
Absolutely.
And you can only do what you can do. You can't save the world. You can only save your part of the world. That's how I feel. Unless you're rich and you can send money all over the place to help people, but that's not my case. But anyway, so my topic is what warms my cauldron, and I wanted to just start off with a little book recommendation, or actually it's a series recommendation, because I am not generally a fiction reader, but I was really feeling, as part of my mental health actually, I was really feeling like I needed an escape. And I wanted something witchy, but I don't like high fantasy. That's just not my thing. Like, I don't like, overly fantastic stuff. So I stumbled across this book. It's called The Gathering. Katherine Genet. It's an actual Amazon publication, and it's a whole series. I'm reading book 4 now. That's how much I like these. But if you're wanting a witchy book, but real, so it's almost like what we would talk about with our spiritual experiences, but they're stories. Like, it's a storyline of several different people in a grove, that like a coven kind of thing, and it's their stories. But when they talk about magic, they talk about it in a way that you and I actually experience it. There's no sparks flying out of a wand, but they use a wand. You know what I mean? So they use a wand to call down divinity or to put out a spell or that kind of thing. It's really real, and that's what I liked about it. So it's a good escape if you're looking for a fictional escape. So that was just something that I wanted to share, because God, right now you need good things in your
distractions.
Life. You need distractions. Yeah. So my other thing I wanted to talk about was house spirits. So, I am so passionate about houses. I've always been that way. Like, even as a kid, I just would look at decorating magazines. Like, Mom would have Cosmopolitan and all these types of magazines, and I'd be like, oh yeah, whatever. But sometimes she'd get some decorating magazines, and I was obsessed over those. So I'd be like looking at houses and how other people lived, and so I've always had a passion for homes. I always thought that I should have been a real estate agent, because I think I could have sold any house, because every house I see potential in it, and I feel the spirit of a house. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like every house has its own spirit. And so when I go for walks at night, if I can see in people, and I'm not peeking into people's windows, but if I see into their windows, I just love seeing people go about their business inside their home. I don't know, it's just something I've always loved and been passionate about. So I just want to do a little backstory on this particular house. So when this house, the previous owner listed this house, it was up for sale for a while, and we're talking about in the market where people were buying houses sight unseen. That's how crazy the market was. I know it's everywhere in the world, but it was also here in Nova Scotia, which is shocking. But people were just buying houses without inspections, without, from Ontario, looking at it through a video. It was absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, so this house was up for sale, and when Katie and I were looking for a house, Katie was obsessed at Viewpoint, looking at the houses that were coming up, and we never saw this house. It was listed, but we never saw it on Viewpoint. So we were looking at other houses with our real estate agent, and we were leaving one house that was just awful, and we were getting very discouraged. And then as we were leaving that house, she got a ding on her phone saying a house price dropped. And this is, again, when houses were selling over the market, the price that they were trying to sell for. So they actually dropped the price of this house. And she was like, I've never seen this house listed before. And suddenly I get a price drop notice on my phone. And she's like, I think we should go look at it. And at first I thought, well, it's too far away, and our real estate agent actually lives further and works in town, or worked in town full-time. Real estate was her part-time job. And she was like, you know what, you get used to the commute. It's a good time alone to listen to your music and stuff. So she's like, let's go see it. And I was very hesitant, but I was like, okay, let's go. And as soon as we saw it, I was like, yeah, definitely. We want this place. Like, we fell in love with it right away. And the previous owner had other offers on it, because as soon as she dropped the price, something happened where it showed up on the listings. So other people were interested in it suddenly too. So she had other offers, and she asked us to, all of us, to write letters as to why we wanted this place, because she wanted the right person in the house. And anyway, she gave it to us, or sold it to us.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. There was money involved. So it was really interesting because the house was almost invisible for the longest time, that to the point where she had to drop the price by $40,000, and then it was like it was waiting for us. So I felt like this house has the spirit that was waiting for us. And when we
chills.
Yeah, so when we moved in, so that's how I felt. I was like, oh, I feel kind of special. This house chose us. The previous owner chose us. And then when we moved in, I was like, all these crazy things started happening. So we had our internet hooked up, and I swear it was the next day or the day after, it wasn't working anymore. I was like, we just had it hooked up. And then we had our heat pump installed, and then within a week, it wasn't working anymore. And the lights were flickering constantly. And then I think we're a month in this place. All of a sudden, the smoke alarms started just going off. So then I was like, okay, something's wrong with the electrical in this house. So then I was starting to get worried about what did we get ourselves into. But, they fixed the heat pump thing. It was something stupid. They fixed the internet. It was a rodent that chewed one of the wires because they forgot to seal the entry point of the wires. We had our septic tank again. We had septic smell coming up because we had to replace the septic tank, and we had brand new septic system, and we had sewage smell in our house for months. They couldn't figure out what it was. It was disgusting in here. And we finally found a plumber who found out that the installer of the septic system forgot to seal a hole where the septic pipe coming into the house, so they forgot to seal around that. I was like, what's with people forgetting to seal things in this house? And then fix all these things, and then the electrical is working fine. The lights don't flicker. Things aren't happening anymore. And I feel like the house was testing us. Are you worthy of living here? And I think we passed the test. But I just felt like this house had such a personality because of all that stuff. Like, I know it's people forgetting to do things, but why did they forget to do things? Like this guy installed septic tanks all the time, and he said, I can't believe I forgot to do that. I feel so bad. But out of that deal, we got some free landscaping done by him because he felt so bad. Yeah, so that was good in a way, even though we lived with sewage for like 6 months in our noses. So the other thing, the previous owner, I feel like, was a bit of probably a witch herself, because I just had this feeling with things that she did to the property and inside the house, that she was a musician, but I also think she was a bit witchy herself. And the owners before her were 2 women. So this house has been owned by women only for quite a while now.
Oh.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So and I really feel a strong sense of ancestral spirit here. So I feel like there's ancestral spirits that I like to work with in this house. So not some new houses kind of lack that spirit. So I guess my thing is, if you want to bring that in, work with the ancestry of the land, or bring it in different ways. In our old house, so Katie does not like this guy. So his name is Sven, and a friend of mine gave this to me as a joke because he was so ugly. But I love him. I think he is just awesome. So she gave it to me for Christmas, but I was like, I am not packing Sven away. I named him. I said, I'm not packing him away. And Katie was like, please, I don't want to look at this guy. I was like, no, he's our house elf. He's our house spirit. And I infused him with that house.
I'm sorry. I was just making faces for the camera. I really do love him.
Yeah. So I sort of infused him with the intention that he be our house spirit in the old house. The old house was built in the 70s, so it was not a new house, but it did lack something. So I had him out all the time as our house spirit. So you can do that if you feel like you're not connecting with the spirit of your house, or you don't feel one. Bring one in. Just you don't have to have an object like Sven, but yeah. So that's what I did. But I brought him here because I wanted his house spirit here too, even though there are already house spirits. And maybe that's why things were going wrong at first. They were like, who the hell is Sven? What's Sven doing here? You know, we don't know if we like Sven, but maybe over time they were like, okay, yeah, he's cool. He's cool.
It's like when you bring a new cat in and your old cat is like,
yeah,
and then eventually,
they get along. There you go. So the house spirits are now getting along, and Sven is happily living in this house now. So there we go. Yeah, so if you want to work with your house spirits, you can leave offerings. So you can maybe leave some food out on your counter if you're not worried about rodents, which I always worry about, even though we don't have any here right now, but I always am concerned about that. So I try to leave more like liquid offerings for the house spirit on my altar, or just talking to your house. I do that all the time. I talk to my house. I always say that I'm going to do my best to maintain and keep her strong and healthy. She's an old house, and she's crooked, but she's strong. And I honor her crookedness, and I say that to her. I was like, you know what? The floors slope in a direction and the walls aren't square, but I honor you. I honor your age, and I honor your history, and I honor your wisdom, and I will do my utmost to keep you strong and protected. And then I ask for that favor in return. You know, I just ask for protection in our home, and yeah. So I think house spirits are probably one of my more favorite things to work with. But and the ancestry of house spirits. So that's it. So that's what makes me feel warm and cozy. And homes are so important, aren't they? They're your sanctuary, your safe space. And if you're not feeling safe in your house, I know what that feels like. And that's a really hard place to be in, and that's not good for your mental health, obviously. So if you can reach out for help if you're not safe in your home for whatever reason that may be, if you can reach out for help, I would like to offer, even you can message us, if there's a space or if you just need to talk about something, you can send us a message. We're not professionals or anything, but sometimes you just need an ear, right? To or we can maybe help guide you to get some help if there's possibility. Because I find one of the worst things for your health, mental health, is not feeling safe in your house. You know, for whatever reason that may be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've done, with my group, we've done house blessings. I've never had to do like a house clearing of something that was really bad vibes or anything, except for Sister's basement. When she moved into her house, it was full of snakes.
Really?
She had a snake infestation in her basement because it's right by a lake and it was very wet.
This one that she's in now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was very hard for me to go into the basement for a little while. But she had someone come in and clear them out. But I didn't want them harmed. Yeah. Right? Like, I don't want anything harmed. That's really big with me. But I did have, like, a funny feeling in one of the rooms in her basement. So I did do, with her permission, of course, I did, I smudged her whole house. But I did some extra work down there with my drums. So, yeah. And, I think that's a very important point you make about being safe in your space. Whether you live in an apartment, whatever it is your space and your sanctuary. So, I think it's important to raise the vibration of where you are. And there's some easy things, whether it's sound vibration, like a crystal bowl or a bell or, just dancing around with some music, just breaking up that feeling that's in there. Yeah. And when my sister's husband, when they broke up and he moved out, we did a big smudge. So we changed up the vibration, because when she was looking for her house, when we walked in that house, we both looked at each other and went, "This is the house." And that's how Jamie and I found our house.
Right.
The second I walked over that threshold,
right,
the second, it was like, oh, like the clouds parted and the angels sang, and that was it for me. Yeah. So it's connecting and feeling that specialness. So just to further expound upon the subject of fear and scarcity, that's how bullies act. So what's going on in the world right now? We do have a couple big bullies in positions of extreme power. And they're not fooling any of us. No. Except for their sad followers. And, judgment. But in times of fear, in times of trouble, people look for a strong leader. And unfortunately, a lot of people will follow a bully because they feel protected. Well, he's not picking on me because I look like him and I'm following him and I'm doing what he says. And I say he because we all know who I'm talking about. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of, egotistical people are men. Their brains just work differently. I'm not saying that all men are bad. So in these troubling times, the bullies, unfortunately, kind of take over. Don't give in to the fear from that, because my girlfriend Lynn Marie said it's the emperor's new clothes, if you remember that fable, right? So the emperor was full of himself, and this tailor thought, I'm going to make some money and tell him that this is an invisible suit and he looks great in it, and everyone was like, yeah, you look great in it, but he was naked. We could all see him, but everybody went, oh yeah, those are fantastic, you look great. So that's who he is. Trump is the emperor, and we see him. And sooner or later, his empire is going to crumble. Now, there'll unfortunately be a lot of damage, but I'm not giving in to the fear. And this is where there's a little bit of, I don't know, I want to say division, because some people in the spiritual community, the witchcraft community, want to hex and curse, and that's okay. I'm more about the love, right? And spreading the light and not allowing the darkness in. I see the darkness. I know it's there, and I protect against it. I'm not like light and fluffy woo-woo. I don't I don't see it, I don't hear it.
Yeah.
That's not me. I'm just saying I'm going to handle it my way, and I fully support, if you want to do the hexing and cursing, then, I'm with you. I'm just not going to be doing it. And that's okay too, right? So don't give into it. Guard yourself against it, and just do your own, please do your own research. Before you blindly follow someone or blindly follow doctrine or dictatorship or, whatever it is that you're being fed, think about it. Come at it from a place of love, not a place of fear and scarcity, because that's how bullies win.
Yeah.
If you were really powerful, you wouldn't need to be filled with hate. You wouldn't need to persecute. You wouldn't need to instill that fear in others, because you would be leading by example. I know there's a lot of people that hate Trudeau. I don't see him as a bully or a fear-mongering person.
No.
First of all, he's too pretty for that. Not my type, but I do think he's pretty. So yeah, just really stop and think, research, find your own information, but come at it from a place of love, and don't give in to the fear. I know it's easy to do, and I get caught up in the anxiety too, and scrolling through Facebook and all the negative posts. I have a cousin who is she lives in Florida. She's a Trumper all the way. Oh, and her posts are amazing. And I won't delete her because I need to see that.
Exactly.
I need to know that there really are actual people who believe that.
Yeah.
Because once I know, I can guard myself against it.
Yes.
I need that information.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
But I don't comment, because why would I? Why would I put myself through it?
Yes.
And that's the other thing, is I don't expend my energy on the hate.
Yeah.
I'm never going to convince her. She's like waving the flag all the way. She's drinking the Kool-Aid. It's delicious. So, but I just, I do it my way, and my way of handling it is just to keep the love and compassion in the forefront, and keep the hate and the haters at bay through raising my own vibration. And like you said, raise the vibration around you, around your family, around your home, around your community. Be an example, be a light, but don't take any shit, right?
Yeah.
I'm not advocating being I'm just gonna love and light my way through life. No. Guard yourself, protect yourself, but do it, as I said, from a place of love. So that's my rant on bullies.
Yeah. Very, very good points there. So I had done 2 little videos on spiritual warfare, and then I took them down. And I'll tell you why I took them down, in case anybody was like, what the hell happened with these? Because I was going to watch it or something. So when I was doing them, and I still feel the information is important and right, but what I noticed was that I like Susie said, I was sort of lowering my own vibration to get to that point of trying to share ways in how you can spiritually defend yourself. But then I realized that I was walking in this space of anxiety, and also walking in a space of division. And I thought, that's not where I want to go with this. That's not the intention of it. So I took them down because I felt like maybe voicing it out loud made me realize that there are better ways to approach it. But at the same time, I'm like, is that coming from a place of privilege, where being white in a country outside of the U.S., even though when I saw this somewhere, is when the U.S. sneezes, we all catch a cold. So, are we talking of not doing curses and hexes because we are in a place of privilege? Because we're not directly in it right now. But coming from, although I don't identify LGBTQ, maybe the Q because I'm in a Q relationship, but I don't necessarily identify as that, but my partner is definitely lesbian and she identifies as that. And I see her fear. You know what I mean? I see her anxiety. Like she's scared to death about what happens if Polyev gets in this country. And whereas when I look at Polyev, I'm like, well, he has some points, right? But for her, and also more research I did, like that's not the person I'm voting for. But I see her fear, and I followed. We watch RuPaul's Drag Race, and we see drag queens and how scared they are right now. So I think when I put out those videos, I was really thinking about those people and how threatened they feel and how scared they feel for their own lives, and how I just wanted to convey that you can try and protect yourself spiritually and not to feel bad about that. I want to educate myself on what the Trumpers are saying and doing, what the fundamental Christians are saying and doing. I educate myself on that, but I am choosing, sort of like Susie said, to put love forward and not investing in that anymore. I was investing in it, and I decided that no, I can't do that, because I made such effort since the early 90s to not get into that, sucked into that. But just in the last few weeks, I did get sucked into that again. So, but I feel stronger, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. So that's why those videos are gone. So yeah, there are bullies. They are in power. There are gatekeepers. And, don't fool yourself. There are alt-right people in the pagan community too. You have to be really careful as to whose videos you watch too if you're against the alt-right, because they're very subtle. I find they're more subtle than Christian alt-right, because they're bold and they say what they think. But the pagan alt-right, you almost can get sucked into their videos on YouTube, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. This guy sounds a little bit like a Nazi.
I had a note about that, I think. Anyway, about almost like cult leaders, right? Yeah. Like there's some people in the spiritual community that kind of, I go, that's kind of culty.
Yeah.
Because they want you to be a follower, and they get off on that egotistical rush. And that, to me, it doesn't matter what you're espousing. As soon as I think you're culty, I'm done.
Yeah. And the ones that I think of, they're often in the Norse pagan community. So because I'm very much interested in that, and there are not alt-right people in the Norse pagan community. They're probably more non-alt-right than, but when I started watching some of videos to learn about this spiritual path, I would get sort of, oh yeah, this guy's really, really good. And then I started seeing signs of white supremacy, exclusion. And so I'm like, oh, for God's sakes, like... So anyway, I just stopped watching their videos. But just be careful. It exists everywhere. We're not immune to it in the pagan community. So the final thing, I just, as a housekeeping thing, I decided to restart my Hearth and Hawthorn YouTube channel, because I kind of miss doing the vlogging part of life. And I think a big part of it is like the other day I was feeling really down, and my daughter actually put some videos on YouTube, and so I love going back every now and then when I need to cry or I need to grieve, because it's been so long ago that she passed away, that I find that I've gotten really good at pushing grief down, or pushing grief down, because it's not as out of control anymore. So every now and then when I feel myself getting kind of crazy emotionally, I have a sneaking suspicion it's that grief that needs to come out. So I'll go and watch her YouTube videos and have a good cry. Usually I'm at work, so that's I don't know why I do that, but that's usually when I have time to watch YouTube, to be honest, because I'll work and have the YouTube going. But anyway, so it just really reminded me of how valuable that is. And I often think, because Katie is younger than me, like, wouldn't it be cool for her to have videos of me talking, or videos of us doing stuff to the house, because we're doing a lot to this property, and I just love vlogging for whatever reason. Maybe I'm a little narcissistic, I don't know, but
we all are a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm very afraid of that word, because I lived with toxic narcissistic people, so I'm a little afraid to admit that about myself. But maybe I like to hear myself talk, I don't know, or put myself out there. But so yeah, I decided to bring up that channel again, and it's going to be a vlog about everything, about what we're doing on this house, on our property, my craft, my spiritual side, and cooking, baking, all the domestic art things. So anyway, that's Hearth and Hawthorn. I'll put a link below for that if you want to come over. And
awesome.
Yeah, it's not going to be anything fancy, so.
That's what we love.
Yeah.
Homey.
Yeah.
I wanted to do another plug, though, because you were talking about grief. And my girlfriend, Rhonda, she's had a lot of grief. And she's the person who's done the most work of anyone I've ever known in my whole entire life. So she lost her mom, her dad, her brother, and her sister. So that's her whole family in the space of a couple of years. So she has a deck that she created, an oracle deck, and it's centered around healing through grief.
Oh, yeah.
So her Facebook page is Akasha's Healing Hands.
Oh, yes, I remember. Yeah.
So she does tarot readings. She's really good, and she's got her oracle deck. But she also is a great source of information, because she's done a lot of therapy through rewiring the brain, neuroplasticity, from ketamine and magic mushrooms. So she's done that through a trained person. She's not just sitting home getting high.
Oh, is she doing like the microdosing kind of thing?
Yeah,
okay.
And she does it like in a setting where somebody is watching over her.
Right.
And I've seen the changes in her. It's amazing. So there are, again, alternatives to grief and to healing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If anyone is really struggling, my friend Rhonda, she, has gone from barely being able to walk, barely being able to get out of bed, having such bad chemical sensitivities that she couldn't go anywhere. And, what she's done is to put in the work, to do the research, to try things, and then creating this oracle deck. And she's working on more decks as well. So I don't know anyone who's done more work than her. She's just an amazing, amazing lady. Love you, Rhonda. And she does my reflexology too. Oh, okay. She does my feet. Feels so good. So, are we?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that was awesome. We'll do pendulums next time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we're at an hour and 20 minutes. I mean, I'll probably whittle that down a little bit, but I don't think by much. So, yeah. So we're going to end this podcast, and we'll see you soon, sometime in March.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.